If we can love our work, then we're doing pretty well. Dietarily, I think decreasing your overall carbohydrate intake kind of fundamentally, and understanding that carbs are just not super essential for energy. We're trained to have a lot of carbs in our diet. So diminishing your carbohydrate intake over the long term substantially, and supplementing that loss with protein, doing things on an empty stomach, like forcing yourself to perform physical activities without food. I think earning your meal, like really working hard before you have your first meal, is also very beneficial and advantageous for your body composition. Any type of physical activity is good. Even though my specialty is weightlifting, is resistance training, I think any sort of physical activity that's consistent is very beneficial for you. If you're not able to understand your responsibilities to create positive change for your client, and be present with that whenever you're seeing your client, then you're not doing, in my opinion, you're not doing a great job as a trainer.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Core Values by Alex. Today, I'm thrilled. In my studio, we have someone who is probably the biggest guy ever I have had here. I'm not sure. I did have someone also the other day. His name is Joshua Taubes. That was almost right. Thank you so much for being here. I know how busy you are, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. This is such a cool system you have here.
Of course. Thank you so much. First question. Tell me something about your background and something about you.
All right. Well, I was born and raised in New York City in Manhattan, so I've been in the same geographical area my whole life. And I think that's presented an interesting life for me. You know, a lot of interesting challenges to overcome and experiences to be had.
Amazing. Thank you. How did you end up in the fitness industry?
I was always very physical. I liked to do sports when I was young. I played soccer and I played basketball, and I kind of took those as far as I could in terms of like improving. And I was in middle school, really high school, like that kind of, I went to a middle school that was also a high school. But in that time frame, I had an elective as weightlifting for school. And I was also kind of lifting weights at the place where I played basketball, which is the Sol Goldman Y on 14th Street and on First Avenue, between First and Second Avenue. And I think weightlifting for me was just like something I could do on my own that was also physical, that I could improve upon. And I didn't see I had a ceiling, like I didn't feel like I had any limitations. Soccer was difficult to organize and required like a certain type of like coordination with your feet, which just didn't feel like I was really that attuned to. And basketball requires quickness and height, which again weren't like my natural gifts. But when I found weightlifting, the like kind of concentration of tension and energy, creation and exertion, that really fit with what I felt like I was good at and what I enjoyed, and the aspects of like improving were very consistent. So even when I would practice other sports, like I felt like I could only get so good, but with exercising, with fitness, it's just like the sky was the limit. I didn't feel like I had a ceiling. I felt like I could just keep growing and keep pushing myself and keep improving. And it's such like a intense experience that it's just very rewarding.
Tell me, where is your intensity coming from, your motivation, your discipline? Because I know how disciplined you are. I mean, I see your body. I know the way you work out and everything. I would like to know where is it coming from?
Well, it's a number of places. I think that my mom is a child psychologist. So, you know, when you have a lot of like pressure to kind of be a certain way, and it's also very like subtle pressure, you kind of want to rage and reject like any sort of expectations that are put upon you. Not that, my mom put expectations on me, but when you're a psychologist, you understand like a certain level of, causality, like why things happen. So I think weightlifting is a way for me to kind of escape that understanding of causality, because it's very visceral. You're very much, in the moment of experience and of pain. So that grounds me, and that makes me want to be more disciplined outside of that experience. I think it's a natural progression for me to really like go towards discomfort, because if you understand the kind of contrasts and dualities of life, then weightlifting is it can feel very comforting.
How did you become so big, and when did you decide to be like a big guy?
I don't know if there was ever like a moment where I decided I wanted to be better. I didn't want to feel like overweight. I didn't want to feel fat. I think that was like my biggest motivation. And then the idea of like building muscle kind of became very appealing to me when I started to work out, and I started to see like I could shape my muscle, I could shape my body, I could lose body fat, I could look the way that I thought would be the best for me to succeed in life, like to feel good about myself, and like in sort of the standard of society and what society deemed, someone should look like. So that was my, like, I guess my aesthetic motivation was just to like look better, to feel better about myself. So I think I kind of used those two things in conjunction, like the breaking free from expectations and overcoming boundaries and improving my appearance and improving my sense of self, like how I felt about myself.
You felt great. Like once you started working out, you were building muscle and you felt good about yourself, and you're like, oh my God, my genetics is just insane. I just want to be stronger, and I want to feel better and everything else, right?
Yes, I think initially it was more just about understanding how to enjoy pain, like how to not be afraid of pain, like physical pain at least. I always knew like in my heart that was the key to really excelling in pretty much every aspect of my life, but in a very practical, like concrete sense with physical training, just going towards the pain, embracing the pain, and understanding the benefit of that. I think that was why I really felt motivated to continue. I don't know if I felt great, I felt like pain, like it was painful.
When you experience that type of pain, and you go through that pain through like with exercising and stuff, do you think that pain help us in other things in our life?
Definitely. Because most things that we're unfamiliar with seem painful. And life is all about in my opinion, life is all about discovering who you are, your purpose, your path, and all of those discoveries are painful in some way. They might not be painful in the moment. They might not be like, you might not understand why it's challenging, and also it might not feel painful like in a like physical sense. Like pain is a very broad spectrum, like lots of things, but it's not just physical.
Joshua, what is your biggest motivation right now?
My biggest motivation is just to have fun in everything I do, and understand like pain is a part of the process of growth, and just enjoy doing the things that are more difficult, that feel like, challenging, and understand like those things are the things that really make you feel better in the long term. They help you appreciate the more relaxed moments and the more, beneficial moments that are kind of where you have less responsibility. It's like embracing that responsibility, embracing the challenge of doing more for yourself, for others, and enjoying the time doing it, because ultimately it all feeds into growth, and it allows you to have more agency within your own experience or your own life and the way that you interact with others. And being able to own that responsibility gives you a lot of good power, to use it for good, to use it to heal people, to use it to better their experiences, to better your own experience. And I think as a physical trainer and as a fitness professional, that's something that we really can do for other people, is we can create a space in our lives, in their lives, where we're doing something fun, we're doing something healthy, we're proactively improving our lives. We're not just talking about it, we're actually doing it. We're going to a place, we're spending time, we're building relationships, we're teaching people how to decompress their bodies, how to break down their muscles, how to strengthen their muscles, how to become stronger, how to become more resilient. These are things that will improve their lives beyond fitness, whether they know it or not. Just being psychologically, being able to overcome the perception of fear or of a challenge or of a hardship, doing something that you're not necessarily comfortable with doing, which is like kind of what physical exercise is very inspiring for you as a physical professional, and also very, I think, inspiring and freeing for your client, for the person who's come to you to like find this ability to consistently improve themselves, to overcome their fears and overcome their challenges, and I think that if you can kind of create that bridge from doing it physically to doing it mentally, then you've really touched on something special, because you no longer are bound by fear or bound by anything negative. You just understand and embrace the work that you have to do. And I think that's right now my biggest goal, is just to embrace all facets of work and understand that we love work, and work makes us strong, and work gives us purpose. So if we can love our work, then we're doing pretty well, I think, in modern society, regardless of, our class or, our genetics or anything that's out of our control. Like, just as human beings, I think that if you love work and you work a lot, you're doing very well.
That's amazing. Thank you for explaining all of this. I think this is really helpful. What do you think? How many people are actually ready to achieve their goals when they come to us? And your opinion on how honest are they with themselves?
I think that just is very subjective. It depends on the person. Everybody's different. I don't know if I could say that there is like a generalized like amount of people. I don't know. I think that different people are in different places, and each person is different. You have to kind of interact with the person and get to know them to understand where they are and what they need.
Right. For people who want to lose body fat, let's say our clients have a goal to lose body fat, to build some muscle. How do you approach these people? What do you think is the best system for them to achieve their goal? I know everyone's different. Everyone's genetics is very different. Every single person has a different traumas from past and from everything else. What do you think it can be one of the best systems for people to follow, for regular people, I'm not talking about professionals, to be in a good shape, and they're like in middle age, and just live better life?
I think there's a few things. I think dietarily, I think decreasing your overall carbohydrate intake kind of fundamentally, and understanding that carbs are just not super essential for energy. They're kind of, we're trained to have a lot of carbs in our diet. So diminishing your carbohydrate intake over the long term substantially, supplementing that loss with protein. Secondly, doing things on an empty stomach, like forcing yourself to perform physical activities without food, like I think earning your meal, like really working hard before you have your first meal is also very beneficial and advantageous for your body composition. I think any type of physical activity is good. Even though my specialty is weightlifting, is resistance training, I think any sort of physical activity that's consistent is very beneficial for you as a person, beneficial for your body, beneficial for your mind. Those two things, I think, are probably the most like straightforward, objective advice I can give to most people. Is look into intermittent fasting, reduce your carbohydrate intake, and implement some type of physical activity as frequently as possible. The more frequent, the better. But
what is the minimum?
I don't think there is a minimum. I think if you prescribe a minimum amount, then you're already putting a lot of people in a place that they're just not comfortable, and they'll probably just reject the protocol. Everybody's in a different place, but as much as you can possibly do is better. Some people just aren't ready for like a high level of commitment of their time or their energy. So that needs to be respected. All you can do is give people, all you can do is kind of say what you think, and then it's up to people to do what they want to do. But in my opinion, as much physical activity as possible is best. In a reasonable sense, But I'm a big believer in being active. That always makes me feel better. So that's what I would advise to any middle-aged person who wants to get into better shape is be as physically active as possible, lower your carbs, and don't eat your first meal until you're really, really, really hungry.
Right. What about if I have clients come to me and say, look, but in the morning I just feel dizzy. I'm very hungry in the morning. I really need to eat something before. Do you think that's just for a few days and then people feel better afterwards? Or you think that that's just a mentality, or it's just mental? What's your opinion on that?
It can be both. And everybody is different, and I remember when I first tried intermittent fasting, I felt the same way. It's like you have to condition your body. You have to create the need for change. It's not going to. That's the whole thing. Is painful, right? It's not going to be easy. It's challenging. Like if you want to create the change, you need to create it. It's not going to just happen. So my advice is, try it for a month, but be consistent. And if you do it for a month, it's very likely you'll stop getting dizzy in the morning. Your entire need system, like how your body regulates itself, is going to change. So it's as a trainer, that's a very difficult part, because, you can only do so much. You're only with your client for a certain amount of time during the week. After that, it's their responsibility to figure out like what they want to commit to. And, you can check in with them, and you can advise them, and you can, give them as much information and impart as much of your own experience to them. But in the end of the day, they have to like figure out what feels good for them. And maybe it just doesn't feel good. Maybe they just don't want it. Maybe they cannot do their work without food. And that's reasonable. And as a trainer, you have to find a different approach. Clients who are more willing to try things for a longer time are probably going to get better results, but that's not your place or our place as trainers. We need to adapt and find the solution that best suits our client.
What about mindfulness? How important is our mind in fitness, in achieving any results? How important is our psychology and approach to not just physical and nutrition and workout? Even if I'm a huge believer, even if you had the best workout, and I mean, of course, you're going to get results and stuff, but like how important is to stay in that place of good mindfulness and in this process?
I think it's essential. I think it's probably the most important thing, because if you're really, in my opinion, if you're really good at this job, then you need to take responsibility, at least in the time where you see your clients, for their mindfulness. That's how I see it. And that might be a step too far. It's possible. I personally believe, because of my philosophy about weightlifting or about exercising and how it feeds into your approach to everyday life and your ability to overcome challenges, that it's so important for you to set the tone. You're the authority figure here. You know, if you're not being mindful, if you're not really aware, if you're not able to understand your responsibilities to create positive change for your client and be present with that whenever you're seeing your client, then you're not doing, in my opinion, you're not doing a great job as a trainer, because it's not your client's responsibility to do that in this space. You know, this is our space as trainers. This is the gym, and we need to set a precedent together. And I think we do here. And beyond that, it's critical for your own consistent, disciplined approach to your type of training. The whole point here, I think, is to impart your experiences of highly prioritizing your training to your client. So it's whatever you're very good at, whatever you like to do, own it and be very good at it and share that with your clients.
If you can choose one really good day of, I know, again, everyone is different. This is subjective again, but how would you prescribe, if someone asks you, can you please give me some advice on a very good diet for me to eat? Again, middle age, 35 to 40, wants to lose a little bit body fat. There's a 5, 6 pounds, 7 pounds to lose. He wants to gain 10 pounds, 5, 6, 7, 10 pounds of muscle. What would you recommend for nutrition from, like, let's say, waking up? You mentioned fasting, not eating in the morning. And what would you say after that? What would you recommend?
I would recommend just to keep it very clean, and, go, if you're in this place where you need to have you need to create a catalyst for change, then your initiative needs to be catalytic. It needs to be intense. So what I'd recommend is, for like 3 months or so, drastically, you might almost want to have no carbs, just to kind of see how your body reacts without carbs. You'll probably feel dizzy, just like you would if you were fasted. You'd probably feel, not so energized when you first do it. But after a while, you realize carbs are just another form of energy, as is protein and fat, and calories in general will give you energy. So it's just I think carbohydrates, in my opinion, they just create more dopamine and they make you feel better. So it's they're more of a crutch than anything else. It's you're not feeling good, you want a bagel, you want to have some carbs, and if you're lacking energy, I think coffee is a great source for energy. So what I'd recommend to 35 to 40 year olds looking to, put about 5 to 10 pounds of muscle and lose about 5 to 10 pounds of fat, besides intermittent fasting, is just keep your diet extremely clean. Eggs, meats, fish. These are great.
What about vegetables?
As much as you want. Vegetables can be, if you can prepare them in a way that you like. Vegetables can be your saving grace when you're first starting this crash course dieting, because it can supplement a lot of those carbohydrate needs, and you can have as many as you want. Vegetables are incredibly nutritious. They have a ton of vitamins and minerals, and they're extremely low calorically and very low carbohydrate profile. So vegetables, as much as you want, pretty much as any vegetable you want. There are some exceptions of vegetables that are a little bit.
What are those?
The ones that are a little, I can't even think of any that are extremely highly carbohydrate rich. I know that there's a few, but I wouldn't worry about it. Right. If you're not having any carbs in terms of starchy carbs, you can have whatever vegetable and as much as you want. But I think a good way to conceptualize it is you want to have 40% of your meal, if you're looking at a plate, 40% of it is protein, 30% is fat and 30% is carbs. I think that's a good way to split it up. If you really wanted to like lose fat quickly, then I would probably go 50, 25 or 50, 30 fat, 20 carbs, find like the smallest percentage of carbs, but really it's carbs that store body fat, like when you have an excess.
Supplementation, huge topic. Everyone wants to know about it.
Mm-hmm.
What's your opinion? And should people use supplements? What supplements do you like? And explain what do you think. It's very important when it comes to, like, for example, creatine, very popular supplement.
I'm a big fan of supplements, especially if there's the need for them. Supplements in general, might not be essential for everyone, but if you're trying to take your physical ability to another level, it can be very effective. So my favorite supplement is pre-workout, like, for example, Pre-Gym by Gym Supplement Science. It's got caffeine, it's a stimulant, it's got beta-alanine, which is also a stimulant, and it's got amino acids, which should help for energy production. And I think also a little bit of creatine in it as well. So pre-workout is great because it focuses you, and also there's also, I think, vasodilation at hand. So that's like creates like bigger blood vessels. So your blood vessels get a little bit bigger, so you get a better pump. And with greater blood flow, it just helps you kind of connect with your body and what you're doing, and you can really kind of feel the contractions more like directly. And if you can feel it where it's going on, then it's easier to focus on it, and it's easier to do it. I think that's where supplements, at least like pre-workout, really help you just get into your workout. Why they call it pre-workout, I'd imagine. And when it comes to creatine is very effective for energy production. The science behind creatine, at least as I understand it, is that when you supplement with creatine, you're basically giving your cells more phosphate molecules. Energy production, the energy inside the cell is called adenosine triphosphate. And creatine gives you more phosphate molecules inside of your cells. So when you contract a muscle, you burn a phosphate molecule, and that phosphate molecule is gone. So the idea behind creatine is you feed your cells with more phosphate molecules. So theoretically, you can contract them more frequently and more times, more contractions, more muscle growth, like more muscle breakdown, more muscle growth. So creatine can actually be very beneficial, yes, in terms of giving you bigger muscles, but also increasing the amount of energy that you have and how much you can contract your muscles and how frequently you can contract your muscles. So I think that's like a great benefit of creatine. And when it comes to whey protein, or any type of protein actually, it's more for recovery. Like those amino acids, like glutamine, for example, which is highly prevalent in whey protein, those will help your muscles repair themselves and recover and be ready for breakdown again. So when it comes to supplementation, it's very effective if you're creating the need. Like if you're not working out very hard, you probably don't need to supplement with creatine. It's really only going to benefit you if you're pushing your muscle to that very limit of what it's capable of in terms of its energy production. And, this is another thing when it comes to my training, which I've always really prioritized, which is true muscle failure. I want my muscle to be completely fatigued.
How important is the failure for muscle growth?
I think it's very important. Everybody's got a different opinion when it comes to this. Most people don't. I'll tell you that, is that most people do not train their muscle to true failure. But I always felt like, and I always thought about it, like I want to take my training out of the hands of any doubt. I want to train my muscle as hard as I possibly can and let the chips fall where they may. After that, it's out of my hands. So I'll do my part and train my best, really, by giving it everything I have. And whatever happens, happens. And that's been my approach. And it's how I impart my method to my clients, is like, don't worry about performing the repetitions perfectly. perform them till you absolutely can't anymore. So really break down your muscle. And in my experience and the experience I have with my clients, you just see real change in the shape of your muscle, in the conditioning of your muscle, the size of your muscle, the density of your muscle, the definition of your muscle. And this also correlates to a lower body fat percentage, because the more conditioned, the more lean muscle that you have, the harder your metabolism works to sustain that muscle, which burns calories, which creates a higher metabolic need overall, which over time leads to a lower body fat percentage, because you're just using more energy naturally just through your activity. If you demand more from your body, it's going to change. And generally the change is less body fat and more muscle, because that's what you're asking from it. It's a simple correlation, but it's difficult to experience because you don't really have that much control over the mechanisms. Like, there is this fallacy where it's like, if you eat this macros, it's like everything is kind of like, very mechanical, but it's not really. It's like the human body adapts over time based on the needs that it's presented. So like, you have to create that need. And this is like one of the questions you asked me earlier about a client who says they feel like dizzy after intermittent fasting for 2 days. Well, of course, you're changing something drastically, or even a week. It's just like we expect results so quickly, when this is something that takes a long time to create and a consistency to create. So it's just, if you create the need and that need is a priority, it's going to affect the outcome that you're looking for drastically. But you have to give it time, you have to be patient, and you have to be consistent. So that's what motivates me to be consistent, is I just understand the correlation of the result, and I believe in it. And if you do, and it's like with anything in life, it's all the same conceptual principle, in my opinion. But with exercise, it's just very physical. It's very like practical. It's a very direct correlation. When it comes to other things, it's there's more variables out of your control.
What's your opinion on people using steroids?
It's a big question. I personally don't think it's necessary, honestly. I don't think it's worth the risk to your overall health, because it deregulates you at a very, very, very high level. It creates a great amount of hormonal change very quickly, which I don't think is very good. I've never taken steroids. I don't really believe in them. I don't recommend them. I also am not going to judge anyone who takes steroids. I think that if you're doing it with a doctor and you're kind of like, you understand the risks that you're taking, then it's a personal choice. So I support that choice for every individual. But if I'm talking to like most people, I don't think it's necessary, and I would not recommend it. It's just, in my opinion, it's just too high risk. And the benefit is a little bit, again, this is all my opinion, but it's very short-lived, because you're changing something without doing the work. It's like a shortcut to the work. It's like, instead of just building muscle over time, you're creating this catalyst by an external source that's very unstable, very unpredictable, and it's an external source. So the thing that worries me about this external source is that if you can't control the external source, because it's external, it's not internal, right? And you can make an argument for supplements, but it's just not as dangerous. It's like a much less dangerous form of hormonal manipulation, because that's what steroids are. If I'm not an expert on them, but from the research I've done and from what I understand, testosterone is a hormone, and if you give yourself more testosterone, synthetic testosterone, it creates like a very intense response for your body. So I don't think that type of drastic change is healthy. I'm very much like long-term, like health-wise, I think it's much better to do things that are generated from an internal place, like at least from a biological standpoint. And it seems like cool if you can do it safely, but there's just too many stories, and I think my parents really, got me out, like, away from that path. Like, I don't judge at all. I think if you look great and you're healthy, then that's awesome, and I'm supportive of that 100%. But for me personally, like, I don't want to dysregulate myself. Like, it's very hard to be consistent if you're unstable. So creating stability and consistency within my life is a priority for me. So I would never use steroids at this point. I'm already past that, like, debate. When I was younger, I was debating it because I thought I might want to be like a very competitive bodybuilder. I thought I might have the genetics, but I didn't feel like that was the path I wanted to take in my life. So it's not really my place to advise people on it, except, like, do your own research and, like, figure out what the long-term effects of steroid use is. And whatever you're doing, be very careful when it comes to, like, even with supplements. Supplements are still, like, an external chemical. So you need to be very careful, do your own research, and if you feel like you have an adverse effect to a supplement, don't do it. Don't take it. That's always my response to a client who tells me that they took pre-workout and it didn't make them feel good. Don't take it. It is non-essential. So that's my feeling, and those are my thoughts.
Okay. If you have a billboard and you can write something on it, and it's for free, and it's huge, and it's going to be in New York, what would you put there? What would you write?
Am I standing in front of this? Is this like my...
No, it's not.
Oh, just like...
Or it can be you, or if you want to. I mean, it's, whatever you want. You can be there. Oof. I mean, your body is just amazing to be on it.
Well, like, I'm wondering if I'm standing behind this. Like, am I standing there? Are people looking at me and then looking at what I wrote? Or is this just like something I can write to leave?
This is a good question. Didn't think about it.
There's so many things that I would write, honestly.
Let's write one thing. What would you write if you had a chance?
It's like there are different sides of me that want to leave, like, a message. Like, the hard ass in me is, like, would say, do the work. Like, don't be afraid, do the work. And the more empathic side of me would say, like, everybody's going through something. Like, be there for people, don't judge people. And if you feel like it's the right thing, like, always take your time to help people.
I love that. Joshua, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for so many insights here. I hope we're going to help someone to live better life for better core values. And if you help one person, I will be happy. This is why am I doing this. And again, thank you so much from my heart.
Thank you for having me, Alex.
For you being here. And I would love to have you again. We're gonna talk about this, but thank you so much. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.